If you've ever finished coaching a client, a coaching session, and you started to second guess yourself with questions like, should I have said that differently? Did I miss something? What if they think I'm not good at this? Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand why this isn't about confidence and why it's probably not what you think. A lot of coaches think that this means I'm not confident enough, I'm not good enough, I need more training, more certifications. But more often than not, that's not the real issue. The real issue is what happens inside you when pressure hits, like all those questioning thoughts. And once you understand what's happening, you stop attacking yourself so much. How would that be? So I've seen some really good coaches quit emotionally long before they quit professionally. It's not because they don't care, but because they care so much that they spiral after every session. I remember talking to a coach, a client of mine, who would spend an entire evening just replaying a conversation. One tiny moment or one answer, one pause or a facial expression from the client. And suddenly she was spinning, thinking things like, maybe I handled that wrong. Maybe I shouldn't be in coaching. Maybe I missed something important. The wild part was that sometimes her client thought that the session was amazing. That's how distorted our thinking can become. And if you don't understand what's actually happening, you'll keep trying to fix it with more information. But information doesn't always solve nervous system pressure. That's the part that most people just really don't talk enough about, because this feels more like a thinking problem. But most of the time, it's actually a happening here problem. Your system reacts to pressure. That's normal. And the moment you start worrying about being judged, but then your attention shifts. So that's the first thing I want you to notice, that instead of staying connected with your client, you're starting to monitor yourself. And that changes the dynamic. So now part of your attention isn't in the conversation with your client. It's on, how am I doing? How do I sound right now? What's the right question I should ask? What are they thinking about me? And all of that internal monitoring creates this unnecessary tension. And that tension makes it harder to stay present. This matters because presence is where your best coaching usually comes from. Not perfection, presence. That's why some coaches maybe sound technically right, but then they feel distant or disconnected. And other coaches make mistakes, but still transform their client because the client feels deeply seen. Huge difference. So let's break this down. There are usually three things happening inside when we do this spiral. The first one is fear of judgment. You care about helping people, and that's beautiful. But sometimes that care slowly turns into a performance anxiety or pressure. Now, instead of serving your client, you're unconsciously trying to avoid failure. And the system starts treating the session like this perceived threat instead of a relationship. That's exhausting. And if you don't notice it, you'll think that the answer may be from becoming more perfect or doing a better job, but it's not. And in a minute, I'm going to tell you the shift that helps coaches stop spiraling so hard after the sessions. But first, let's continue. Number 2, your brain starts searching for the danger after the session. Now, this is important to understand. Your brain thinks, if we can find a mistake, we can prevent pain next time. So replaying the session starts to feel productive. But most of the time, it just creates more self-doubt, because now you're analyzing yourself without context, without connection, or without regulation. And the longer you stay in that state, the more distorted your thinking becomes. That's why one tiny moment can suddenly feel huge. One awkward pause, one sentence, one moment where the client looks a little uncertain, and now your brain is building this entire story around it. And coaches who do this long enough become emotionally exhausted. Imagine leaving a session without replaying 3 hours afterwards. Imagine noticing the spiral quicker instead of getting pulled away by it. So if you never learn how to stay steady when that pressure comes up, that's the challenge. Now, what this next part is probably the most important thing that I'm going to say in this whole video. Confidence does not come from saying everything perfectly. It comes before that. Yeah. Confidence comes from learning how to stay with yourself when the uncertainty, the pressure, the self-doubt show up. That's the real skill. And yes, it's absolutely something you can learn. You can learn to stay more present in the room. You can learn to trust yourself more afterward. You can learn to stop spiraling every time you just think you made a mistake. Now, it's not overnight, but over time, absolutely, you can learn it. Because staying steady under pressure is actually a practice. Think about it this way. Most people are trying to solve the internal capacity problem with an external information. So more scripts, more information, more certifications. But the issue isn't always knowledge. Oftentimes the issue is, can you stay with your system? Can you stay steady enough so that you can use what you already know? And that changes the whole conversation, because now we're not talking about doing things perfectly. We're talking about building the capacity to stay connected to yourself while the pressure's happening. And that's a completely different goal. And that's where true, real self-trust begins. It's not like you'll never have fear again, but because fear will stop running the show. So I created the Practice Lab, not for people who want more theory, but for people who want to practice staying steady in the challenging moments. Practice noticing when something takes over. Practice staying present instead of spiraling. Practice trusting themselves a little more and a little more each time. Practice until you feel steady. Because you can't think your way into steadiness. You practice your way there. And if this video actually connected with you, that's probably why. Because something deep down, you already know. The goal isn't perfection. Skills come from learning, confidence comes from doing. And the Practice Lab is where you practice staying steady until it feels natural.